Joining us now is a phenomenal person who's doing a great job as Secretary of Health and Human Services. It's Secretary Bobby Kennedy Jr. Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us today. You have some news to share. I just saw the tweet regarding the VICP going all the way back to the 1986 Vaccine Act. Mr. Secretary, please tell our audience about this breaking news.
Yeah, the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which was part of the Vaccine Act that was passed in 1986. And you know what happened back then, Charlie. The vaccine companies said they were getting sued at that point, and they were paying $200 in downstream liabilities, according to them, for every dollar that they made selling vaccines. And they went to Congress and said, we're going to stop making vaccines unless you give us immunity from liability. And Congress worked with the parents of vaccine-injured kids to come up with a solution, because the court solutions were not good for the vaccine-injured either, because they took so long. And so many of these parents are very, very desperate to get compensation and care for these, very, very needy kids. So they worked out a compromise solution where they would give the vaccine companies immunity from liabilities. So no matter how negligent they are, no matter how reckless, no matter how unnecessary their ingredients or their quality control, you can't sue them. But Congress made up for that by saying that we're going to create a compensation program and a procedure by which parents can come in and quickly, generously get compensation without having to go through this whole court process. So it was well-intentioned, and in that the tie was supposed to go to the runner. So if there was a question about whether the injury was vaccine-related or not, they were supposed to compensate the child. It's turned out to be, and at that point, under the original act, the children, if they didn't like the settlement they got from the vaccine court, they could go to a real court and vindicate their claim. What's happened is the act has changed, so you can no longer go to another court. It is your exclusive remedy, and they've made it. You're not suing the vaccine company that made the defective product. You're suing instead me, the Department of Health and Human Services. Mm-hmm. And we're represented by DOJ lawyers, so you're facing the deep pockets and the awesome power of the federal government. There's no discovery. They can't look at the vaccine safety data link, which is the attorneys are not allowed to look at it. And independent external researchers can't get in there. And that's the record, the data sets for all the vaccine injuries. The Justice Department attorneys have turned this into, historically, not under Pam Bondi, she's trying to fix this, into a very adversarial proceeding, so that on average, half the cases get dismissed. The average length of adjudication is 5 years. Some of these parents who are desperately needy to have care for their kids take 10 years. And these kids, some of them, it's $1 million a year to care for them. And so the system has been turned into this kind of morass where vaccine cases go to die. And most vaccine cases, particularly the serious ones, simply don't get compensated. They've also changed the rules to abolish vaccine injury by fiat. So they took the age-old definition of encephalopathy, which is brain injury, brain damage, and they made it so that there's no way that you can prove it. You have to prove your child lost consciousness for 24 hours and then was hospitalized, and then they have to jump through a bunch of other hoops. You can't prove it. So each case goes in and has to be proven like a regular court of law, and it's devolved into this very, very cruel, heartless system that is designed to deny vaccine injury and to deny compensation to people who badly need it. And we are about to fix all that.
And I want to get into the fixing, but just to reiterate it, immunity is a blank check to be careless. Look, I'm not a huge fan of all the trial lawyers or attorneys, but over time, they do make products safer, whether it be faulty engines in cars, or whether it be problems with food. Again, the over litigious nature of part of our society probably needs to be restrained. But when you have no capacity to be able to sue when a product is faulty, then it's just a blank check to be careless. And so, Secretary Kennedy, what are you doing to fix this? Because I know a ton of families that have submitted reports to VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, and for years and years they can't get any progress at all with the VICP, the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. How are you fixing this? Because this is a broken system that overwhelmingly benefits AstraZeneca, Moderna, Pfizer, and Johnson & Johnson. Secretary Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean, those companies, we have a free market system in this country, and part of that is that there's consequences if you make a bad product. And, vaccines are particularly exempt from that because there's no free market economy. Normally, if you get poisoned by Coca-Cola, you can stop drinking Coca-Cola. But if you get poisoned by a vaccine, your kids still have to take that vaccine to get into the school. If your doctor tells you your child will die because, you can look and see what happened to elder siblings, there's some kind of genetic vulnerability that's affected the older siblings, and the doctor wants to tell you your third child should not take this vaccine, he's going to be punished for that. And also the schools won't let you go to school no matter what. So in New York and California, there's not only no religious exemptions, there's no philosophical exemptions, but there also effectively is no medical exemption. So these kids, it's mandated, and because it's mandated, there's no market forces that tell you, that allow you, if you don't like the product, if you have reservations about it, you can't stop using it. You got to take it anyway. So the things that and then, you have, of course, the mainstream media is bought and brain dead when it comes to these issues. They will not criticize, they will not report vaccine injury. The Congress is very with the so you have none of the market forces that apply and make other products safe. There is zero incentive for these companies to make them safe. And they don't get punished for it in the market. They don't get punished for it in the court. And so, what we're going to try to do is to make sure that the parents who do get injured get compensation, that they get it very quickly, and they get it without the kind of adversarial impediments that have now been erected over the past 40 years.
So Secretary Kennedy, I looked at some of these numbers previously. The counter argument is like, oh, this barely ever happens. Now, just in 2021, there were 1.3 million reports that came into the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System. Now, of course, there might be some people lying and there's some fraud, or there might be other issues. So let's just cut that in half. That's 650,000 Americans that very well might have been harmed by a vaccine. How many people, Secretary Kennedy, do you think have legitimate claims? I know it's a tough question or approximation, but can you at least reiterate, this is a major issue, potentially affecting millions of Americans that are ignored by their government. Secretary Kennedy.
Well, first of all, you should know that when somebody wins a case in the vaccine court, they're not compensated by the company that injured them. They're compensated from a trust fund that is endowed with a 75-cent surcharge on every vaccine. Oh, that trust fund is sitting there. It's got a couple of $2 billion in it. It's paid out to date about $5.6 billion. And 12,000 people have recovered. About 13,000 cases have been dismissed. But there's no advertising for this program. Doctors are not trained how to recognize vaccine injuries. So if your child gets a allergy, for example, or asthma or seizures when they're 4 or 5 years old, there's no way that your doctor is ever going to say, hey, that might have come from the vaccine. I'm going to report it to VAERS. So there's chronic undercounting in VAERS. You said 1 million
That's
cases.
Right.
Well, in 2010, CDC did a study of VAERS, and what they found in their own study is that fewer than 1% of vaccine injuries are reported. So most people who get a vaccine injury don't even know it. And they never report it. And there's a lot of penalties against doctors who do report them. It's time consuming. They're not compensated for the time. They get medical boards frown on them for doing that. And they're not trained in medical school to recognize the injuries.
So Secretary Kennedy, what do you say to those who just say this is just more anti-vaccine propaganda and that this will only further deteriorate people's trust in vaccines?
Well, when I mean, my job as Secretary of HHS is to restore trust in the vaccine program so that parents know that we're telling them the truth, that we tell them the things that we know, that we tell them the things that we don't know, and we tell them the things that, are both good and bad about vaccines. Vaccines are very, very useful in many cases, but they do cause injuries occasionally, and we need to be frank about that, and we need to have compassion toward the children who are injured. We can't gaslight the parents. We can't gaslight the children. We can't marginalize and vilify the doctors and delicense the doctors who report injuries. We can't punish and retract articles by the scientists who document those injuries. We have to start being honest again with the American public. And my philosophy is that public health officials should never lie. They should never, Anthony Fauci used to talk about the noble lie. He would tell people things to get them to do things that were good for them. Well, we're going to start trusting the American public, that they're the best judges of what's good for them, what's good for their kids, and what they need is good information that they can believe, and not information that they've been fed by public health agencies to try to manipulate their behavior.
Secretary Kennedy, we have to let you go. Thank you so much for all of your leadership and your courage on this. Any final thoughts, 1 minute remaining, on this major announcement?
I mean, we're a nation of compassion. And, my uncle helped write this bill. And during the Senate debate, he said, in America, we are not going to ignore people who are left behind. We're not going to try to advance an agenda or advance the American people by leaving the vulnerable, the injured behind. Every child who takes one of these vaccines is entitled to compensation if they get injured. And we need to, as a nation, commit ourselves to compensating them justly, generously, and quickly.
Secretary Kennedy, thank you so much. You're welcome anytime. And thank you for doing what you said you were going to do. Thank you so much, Secretary Kennedy.